make an assessment of all the things that can influence or have some effect in the mid-term or long-term after you purchase, right? Do you see yourself living in the next 3 to 5 years in this city? Is the infrastructure like worth or good enough for your standards? Would you be willing enough to stand up to the climate change during summertime? Is healthcare what you're looking for? Look for everything that surrounds having your daily lifestyle, whether that will give you or complement the quality of life that you want. Always find yourself an experienced realtor.
Welcome to Live by Design Mexico Edition, the podcast about creating freedom, adventure, and a life in Mexico that truly feels like your own. I'm your host, Taniel Chemsian. If you've been dreaming of warmer days, smarter investments, and a future designed on your terms, your journey begins here. Every week, we dive into stories, insights, and strategies to help you make Mexico not just a destination, but a new way of life. We've got so much to cover today, we had to split it into 2 episodes. So settle in and don't miss a moment. Don't wait for life to happen. Design it. And it starts right here. So you have San Felipe, you have La Paz, Cabo. Why would someone choose La Paz over the other 2 cities?
That's a good one. Let's put it like that. La Paz and Cabo, it's like black and white. All right. And I always tell my clients, it's nor better or worse. It's about what kind of life you're looking for. La Paz feels more like a Mexican city, more for like long-term living, where you blend in with the local.
When you say Mexico, I mean, are we talking like more traditional old world?
More traditional
like
old world. Exactly. The pace of living, it's calmer in La Paz. The pace of living in Cabo, it's more tourist oriented. It's more crowded. It's if you are into nightlife, then Cabo would be the place for you. If you are into luxury resorts, then Cabo is the place for you. La Paz, it's calmer. The pace of living is just slower. The moment you get here, you realize that right off the bat. It's funny because me being from Tijuana, when I first moved to La Paz, it took me quite some time, between 3 and 6 months, to really adapt and slow down my pace. You know, I was used to that everything goes fast.
Yeah.
You name work-related stuff, everything. And I've seen people like enjoying sunsets in the afternoon and people just loving the outdoors, the walks on the beach, walking their dogs. But things in general were just different, you know?
Yeah. Well, I remember when I used to go to Tijuana, it was just insane. I mean, the traffic, the noise, and it's a big party town as well. So it was if I went further south from Tijuana, like drove 20 minutes south, it was okay. But like in the heart of it was just chaos and mayhem all the time. I just remember that and I thought, wow, how can people live here? It's just way too busy for me and very touristy.
Yes, I lived that firsthand. I truly know what you're talking about. So to me, I assume or guess that was one of the things that clicked on me right away when I was visiting La Paz before moving full time. I said, look, the stress of living in a big city, it's different than living in a city like this, right? So if stress level, you can measure that from 1 to 10. And if my stress level was somewhere 8 to 9, when I moved to La Paz, it's 1 or 2, you know, just,
wow.
You just live different in a city like this.
Yeah. Well, same thing in Vallarta. People come down here, they feel like their blood pressure just went down. They can decompress and relax. Yeah, I totally get it. I'm from Los Angeles, and Los Angeles has the worst traffic in the United States. It's fun to go, enjoy, visit the family, but I always look forward to coming back to Vallarta and not have to deal with all the traffic. And what would you say is one of the big misconceptions foreigners have about La Paz, and what usually changes once they truly experience the city?
One thing, that it's too remote or too underdeveloped. But just like I mentioned before, once you realize we have an international airport, once you realize we have infrastructure, we have reliable services, you know, we have a decent amount of like shops, restaurants, things that really add value to a daily life, healthcare being one of them. That's when people visiting La Paz realize that this could be a city to live more than just coming from vacation, you know, like partial or full-time living.
And what's the weather like there?
Okay, weather. That's very important to mention.
Yeah.
I always say that for me, it's summertime all year long. I can wear shorts and sandals any month of the year. But one important thing to know about La Paz, it gets really hot June through September. It's funny because a lot of people who come from the United States and Canada, they usually live during those months. They're here 6 to 8 months and they're out from June through September. They go back to their States or Canada, and November they come back because we're like, it's desert-like weather at the end of the day. But that's what makes Southern Baja very special because you have the desert and the ocean. You got cacti and you have a palm tree right next to it. And they're like, really? So it's just, that's one thing to be aware of. Those months gets really hot. Some people prefer not to be here during those months. But to be honest, as long as you're like indoors, AC, whether it's your office, your car, home, and between 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., that's the time frame during the day where people try not to be in direct contact with the sun unless you're at the beach.
I recall when I was in San Felipe, I don't recall it being humid, and I was there in the summertime. In Vallarta, during the summers, we're about to enter June, July, August, September, October, humid months, rainy season. Do you guys get humidity out there, or is it like dry heat?
For us, it's dry heat. It's dry heat. Yeah.
And what about, do you guys have a rainy season?
Yes. Well, for us, we call it raining season, hurricane season, which is, September being the peak of it, the highest. But I would say July, August, September, probably those 3 months. But it doesn't rain much. Actually, 2 years ago, it didn't rain one single day. So expect rain probably 10 days out of the year at the most.
And do you guys ever get like tropical downpours like we do in Vallarta during August, September?
Yeah, we do. But one thing that helps us a lot, we're not on the Pacific Ocean. We're on the Sea of Cortez, which is, we're inside, meaning that most storms comes from the open sea. So what happens when they touch land and get here in La Paz, they're usually just a weak hard storm for 1 or 2 days at the most, but nothing significant.
Okay. Another question for you in terms of pricing for properties and closing costs. What are the closing costs like in La Paz for buyers' closing costs? I
would say if foreign buyers right here, you need to purchase through a fideicomiso or bank trust.
Yep.
By law.
Just like Vallarta.
So, but closing costs, I would say around 6% of the purchase price of the property. That's what you're looking for.
Okay. So that's important for a client to factor that into their budget.
Definitely. That's one thing that you have to consider. But buying through a trust, I mean, it's super safe and also give you this benefit of adding beneficiaries to it without the need to having a will or going through probate if something goes wrong, It has its attributes and things to consider,
Yeah, and a trust costs around $500 a year to maintain.
Yes.
And in Vallarta, typically, if there are no hiccups, nothing's wrong with the title, it takes roughly 60 days to close and for the buyer to get their deed. Do you guys have a similar timeline in La Paz?
I would say yes, about the same one. If everything goes as planned, it could be as fast as 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. At the very most, 12 weeks, 3 months.
Yeah. Depending on the trust bank.
Yes. It's like opening a Pandora's box. I had so many experiences from one bank to another. It's a totally different story, but
yeah, it's really important when, it's which trust bank you choose. Some are a complete nightmare to deal with and others are just a complete delight to deal with. So I've had closings where the seller's trust bank was one of those complicated banks and it took 9 months to close. I had a friend of mine who's a real estate agent here, same bank, and it took them, I think, 1.5 years to close. So it's really important, I think, for a buyer, if they're purchasing a property and the seller is a foreigner and they have a trust, is to find out which trust bank that they have, because that's going to dictate how soon you're going to be able to close.
Definitely. And I highly recommend anybody creating a trust to make a purchase to really first approach a professional, a closing attorney, but talk to him and find out that, make sure that he's using a decent fiduciary bank that's not going to delay the procedure,
Yeah. What are some of the best trust banks right now in La Paz that you guys recommend?
Well, I've had great experiences, for instance, with Banbajío, Banco Autofin, but these are banks recommended by the local closing attorneys that they've already been through the worst nightmares.
Yeah.
I can tell, for instance, when you're dealing with Santander, if that's the case, Santander is one of those banks that they're no longer constituting new bank trusts. So they're just actually having a fiduciary department to cancel and expire the current ones. And this makes it really hard when it comes down to customer service, because it's not like they have a huge fiduciary department taking care of business anymore. They're just having someone over there to cancel or the expired ones that they will no longer be renewed, let's say so. But I had bad experiences with banks like that. But Banbajío, Autofin, I think those are really good. I had, as far as commercial banks that we all know, because Scotiabank, HSB, Santander, I had bad experiences before, but it depends whether you're canceling the trust or creating the trust, the procedure that you're going to do, but not the best experiences with the big names.
Yeah. You mentioned some of the banks that I've had issues with, and and some trust banks that are great today might not be tomorrow. They might be very understaffed and they're not really paying attention to that division because it's not a big moneymaker for them. So they don't allocate a lot of time and energy to the trust division. Ivan, what would you say are some of the mistakes you see foreign buyers make frequently, and how can they avoid it?
First, it's not to romanticize that you're buying a vacation lifestyle, not because we're a beach town. They assume that it's going to be like vacation lifestyle for the long term. It's one thing. It's about, for instance, in La Paz, it's understanding that relationship with time and lifestyle. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because things here moving at a different pace from any big city. And that's one thing that you have to grasp and understand when you first intend to purchase, right? The other one, it's like really get to know the neighborhoods. Even though the city offers this many things, it's not the same to live in downtown area, to live on the outskirts, to live in a high-end community. I would say just live the city at least for a week or two. If you are really that motivated to purchase, just find out which neighborhoods fits best for your needs. What kind of house are you looking for? 1 story, 2 story, ocean view. So it's really to make that assessment and do your due diligence as far as healthcare services, things that are truly important to you. And the moment you start working with a realtor, make sure he preferably licensed, experienced, that he knows the market, and a closing attorney the whole time. Someone that can walk you through the legal steps and structures of buying property in Mexico.
And these closing attorneys, are they bilingual?
Yes, most closing attorneys, they're bilingual. And this has a lot to do that we're tourists, and Southern Baja, from Cabo to La Paz, all these beach towns, we have a lot of international buyers, and it's just today's market, it's you're going to find closing attorneys most of the times to be bilinguals.
What would you say surprises most people after finally moving to La Paz and they've been there for 6 months to a year? What are some of the surprises do they experience or transformation? One
thing is they start to enjoy the daily quality of life. When they realize the city is for them, then it's all about like the outdoors, going to watch the sunset at the Malecon, walking your dogs. On the weekends, for instance, I camp a lot. I do camping. A lot of beach towns or just virgin places that I've never been to. And it's just like to disconnect, to decompress, and to being able to hop on your car and 30 minutes after you're at a beach with no one surrounding you, at least 200 yards each side that you can count, take your dogs and everything. It's just, it's priceless to me. Those are the things that people realize after 6 months. Another one, it's like when you first get here, if you come from somewhere where your schedule has to be structured, every hour I got to do this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right here, you're going to lose that. You're going to lose that. Eventually, you're going to start cherishing the way of living here. Like, it's calmer, it's quiet, it's laid back. So those are the things that people realize when they transition to La Paz, that after 6 months, their stress levels, it's just different. And the way of living daily life is just different, The outdoors, the marine life, there are plenty of things to do if you like the outdoors and marine life.
I had one client who moved here. He was a lender in outside of Vancouver, Canada, and he was on a blood pressure medication. And when he and his wife moved down here, now I'm going back maybe 10 plus years, these clients of mine, after I think about a month or two of living here, he was off his blood pressure medication. He was just like you just mentioned, like walking outdoors, being in nature. And here in Vallarta, we have the Sierra Madre Mountains, and of course, we've got the beach. And it's amazing how therapeutic Mother Nature is, and how healthy and nurturing, and just making that adjustment, it has such a positive impact on your life. People
Definitely.
Don't realize that how much your environment where you live truly shapes your health, your mental health, and your well-being.
Definitely. And many times I work in sales, right? But I don't sell the property. I sell the lifestyle. I pretty much tell my experience coming from a big city and what I'm running away from and what I'm looking for, and usually I connect a lot with my clients because a lot of people, it's because they want to retire. They want to slow down. They want just calmer. So when I start telling them everything I've been through the years and the differences, it's just like an instant click. And yeah, myself, for instance, I connected with nature like never did before, I cherish those small details more than ever.
Yeah, you said lower cost of living, a lot of, when I started real estate 20 years ago, lower cost of living was something, one of the primary reasons why a lot of the Americans and the baby boomers, people retiring, living on fixed income, are moving to Mexico. They're still doing that, but the conversation also has come up where they're tired of the political turmoil in their home country, and they're moving. There are a lot of people moving for that reason. Are you experiencing anything similar like that in La Paz?
Yes, a lot. Just speaking last year, the last 12 months, I would say 8 out of 10 clients that I go on tour for properties, they're looking for somewhere else outside their country of origin, whether if it's Canada or the United States. One of the reasons also is the cost of living. It's just, it's up to the roof. Their pension is not good enough to have a quality lifestyle. And political stance recently has placed a lot of people. They say, I just want to run away from such and such. I want a place outside for now.
Yeah.
So it's a constant that we've seen recently.
Well, every time I turn on any US news, I don't see how people can live under such a stressful environment when the news constantly, and it's their job. They want you to be glued to the television. So of course they're going to show negative news, each political party hating one another, allegedly. And they're just kind of feeding all this negativity and fear mongering. And I think so many people are just so fed up. They're like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I don't want to live in a world, in a city, in my country, where I'm just constantly bombarded with negative messaging and all the chaos and creating uncertainty. Like, where is this all going? And just in the last year and a half, we've had a lot of people move down here just for that. They're like, you know what? I just want to live my life peacefully, enjoy, spend time with my family, my friends, and not constantly be living like in this stressful environment where you're constantly on the edge. You just don't know, is another shoe going to fall off today? And what kind of domino effect that's going to have, that's going to negatively impact my life and my pocketbook.
Definitely. Definitely. That's one story that I listen very frequently,
Who would you say, who is not a good fit for La Paz? I mean, there are people that would be a good fit. Who would you say La Paz this is not a good fit for you?
Okay. Who is not a good fit for La Paz? First of all, people looking for the convenience, nightlife, and of a big city. That people who look for that kind of fast-paced living where you have everything at your disposal, La Paz would not be one of those places, right? For instance, this is a city. It's funny because when spring break comes, it's not a place where spring break happens. Of course, we have in Mexico Semana Santa, the nationals come and everything. Like nightclubs close at 2 a.m. in the morning compared to other cities where they go until 6 a.m. in the morning. La Paz is not a good fit for people unwilling to adapt to a slower pace of life. It's not for people who can't stand hot weather during summertime. That's important to mention. And I would say mostly those things, if you're running away from stressful, fast-paced cities, then giving a try to La Paz, it's definitely worthwhile. But if you want to keep that consistent big city environment, definitely La Paz is not that city, or that place.
So it's more really you're going there to kick back, not to party 24/7. And that's kind of odd because since it's the capital of Baja, you would think the capital city would be big city, lights, things to do all the time, the nightlife, it's a fast-paced city. But it sounds like it's quite the opposite.
Yes. And look, I would say more artistic and cultural things happening in La Paz rather than like nightlife party related things happening in La Paz. Of course, we have our bars or nightclubs, but the scene, it's not like a big nightlife scene compared to other cities.
So for someone that's waiting on the sideline, Ivan, that's thinking of moving to La Paz or moving to Mexico in general, and the years are going by and they're still thinking about it and they're afraid to make that move, what advice would you give them?
First of all, like buying a property shouldn't be an emotional decision. Do your homework. Make an assessment of all the things that can influence or have some effect in the mid-term or long-term after you purchase, right? Do you see yourself living in the next 3 to 5 years in this city? Is the infrastructure like worth or good enough for your standards? Would you be willing enough to stand up to the climate change during summertime? Is healthcare what you're looking for? Look for everything that surrounds having your daily lifestyle, whether that will give you or complement the quality of life that you want. Always find yourself an experienced realtor if this is the case. And most of the time, us will have a great or big picture of the city, ask your questions, like whether it's a closing attorney, whether it's the realtor, whether it's the concierge at the hotel. Just do all of that. Get to know the neighborhoods from the city. And after that, then you can make a decision, right? Find out about the closing costs. Because one thing, it's about the low cost of living, but what is the cost of maintaining your home, the repairs, all those things,
Sure. And the carrying cost, meaning repairs. I mean, I live in the tropics. So there are certain types of maintenance you have to perform on your property. You live by the ocean, so the saltwater air, the humidity. Then we have the extreme heat. Then during the winters, the weather's a lot milder. We have tropical downpours. So these are all the kind of things I think people forget to factor in. And also, like if you live in Palm Springs, so you have different types of maintenance over there. So in La Paz as well. So I think all these things need to be discussed with the agent so people have a better round idea. Yes, the cost of living is less, but you also should factor the fact that by living by the ocean, you're going to have these kinds of annual expenses and things to repair. Hey, Ivan, it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Live by Design podcast. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach out and get a hold of you?
Nowadays, Instagram, for instance, that's more the youngsters, but I can either give you my Instagram, email, or WhatsApp. If you're in Mexico, most people use WhatsApp, but it's the same phone number. If you want to speak to me directly, I'll just take your call. But I'll leave you all my information, WhatsApp, email, and my business Instagram or business page as well. So you guys can contact me for any free consultations.
All right, great. Well, we'll get that information once you wrap up, and then we'll put all that in the details of this podcast. Ivan, thank you so much, and I look forward to chatting with you again real soon.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Live by Design Mexico Edition. If there's a topic you'd love for us to cover, email us at info@tanielchemsian.com. We'd love to hear your ideas. And be sure to subscribe, share the show with a friend, and join me each week as we explore how to create freedom, adventure, and live by design under the Mexican sun. Design your days now, and your future will follow.